chapter 3. And it says, a prayer of Habakuk the prophet on Shihronot. Let's see this name. As we know, Habakuk means embrace. So let's see this other name we have here. So the name is Shigayon, and it means, well, the meaning is doubtful, but they believe it means song from the root shaga. Here it means to go astray. So in this sense, connects with apostasy, but the meaning that they are given to it is song. So it's very different. Anyways, let's go back. A prayer of Habakuk the prophet on Shigayon. Oh Yahweh, I have heard your report. So the fact that it may mean song, well, perhaps they are giving that meaning to it because of this verse, as if Habakkuk went to that place to make this prayer as a song, and therefore he chose that place because of the name. So it is possible that it's related to a song or a prayer, and that is the reason why he's choosing the place, as names are so important. But if it had to do like, well, as we just saw in the concordance, if the name Shigayon has as its root to go astray, as in the apostasy, the rebellion, then we would expect to see the rebellion of Israel, of the world, mentioned throughout this chapter. So, a prayer of Habakuk the prophet on Shigayon. Well, in this case, we saw the concordance, and it gave us the name Shigayon, but in this case, it appears as Shiginot. So, Shiginot. And it says, oh Yahweh, I have heard your report. I was afraid. As we saw in the previous chapters, Yahweh told Habakuk what was to come because of the sins of the world, the punishment that would manifest during the end times. Yahweh even told him that the prophecy, even when it was told, people wouldn't believe it. So now we see Habakuk saying, I have heard your report. I was afraid. Oh Yahweh, renew your work in the midst of the years. This is so amazing. Oh Yahweh, I have heard your report. I was afraid. Oh Yahweh, renew your work in the midst of the years. As we know, amen, there are 7 lights which represent the 7 congregations, the 7 luminaries that can be seen with the naked eye, the 7 days of the creation, which are very important when we connect them with the menorah, which is obviously a symbol of Israel and of the congregation that was placed within the temple. So Yahweh made the creation in 7 days, and he rested. He made the Shabbat on the 7th. So we could see the menorah as the first day, second day, third day, fourth day, then 5th, 6th, and 7th, right? Obviously. If we do that, we see that the 4th is right in the middle, which is the candle that is used to give fire to the rest. To lit up the rest, we need the one in the middle. So it is called the Shemesh, which connects with the Shemesh Tzedekah, the Son of Righteousness, or with Mashiach, who is the light of the world. And through our belief in him, we receive the Ruach, which is like the light of the menorah. So this one in the middle is very important. And that's why, just like Yahweh made the creation in 7 days, and as it is written, to Yahweh 1 day is as 1,000 years, then that means that the history with sin as we know it would last 6,000 6,000 years, and then there will be a millennium of rest, the Shabbat, the true Shabbat. So in that case, we have that here's the first millennium, then the second, then the third, and then the fourth millennium. Mashiach came to close this fourth millennium, for he came 2,000 years ago. 1, 2. So we are right here at the end, about to start the Shabbat, the last millennium. 2 days before, 2,000 years before that, Mashiach came and died to close the fourth millennium. For Yahushua, as you can see the name right here, is the light that gives light to the rest. So look now how amazing that Habakuk says right here, oh Yahweh, renew your work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, right in the middle of the years. So if this would be the years of human history, 7,000 years, counting the Shabbat, the midst would be the Shemesh, the candle right in the middle. And that is the time when Mashiach came to renew all things. So this was fulfilled. Mashiach came in the middle of the years, in the midst of the years, to give light to the world and become the last Adam, therefore starting everything again. For here Adam came, but then in the midst, the last Adam came. I have heard your report. I was afraid. Oh Yahweh, renew your work in the midst of the years. Make it known in the midst of the years. In wrath, remember compassion. In wrath, remember compassion. So since Yahweh just showed Habakuk in the previous chapters what he is about to bring to the world as punishment, Habakuk makes this prayer and asks for him to renew everything, to start everything over again, all over again during the midst of the years, which, like I just showed, Mashiach did by coming in the midst of the years of human history. So in the wrath that Yahweh was at the moment during the time of Habakuk, he was about to bring the end because of the sins, but Habakuk prays and Yahweh sends in the midst of history, Yahushua, remembering compassion in the middle of the wrath. Remembering compassion, mercy, so that some can be saved in the end times when the manifestation of those prophecies in the previous chapters happens. So also another way of seeing this right here, oh Yahweh, I have heard your report, I was afraid. Oh Yahweh, renew your work in the midst of the years, make it known in the midst of the years. He says it twice. Renew your work first. Let me see. In Hebrew, review Yahweh your works in the middle of the years. And then we have that it says, make it known in the midst of the years. Make it in the midst of the years known. So the So here, this is also important because this word comes from Da'at, which is what comes after wisdom and knowledge. So it's pretty much after the first and the last have manifested, they become one. And that is when the knowledge of the true mighty one is revealed for all to see. Interestingly enough, this union of the first and the last will happen when the last resurrects during the midst of the years, the midst of the 7 years of the end times. So the two witnesses begin during the first seal of Revelation 6, and they begin with the 1,260 days prophesied in Revelation 11 that they will testify for. And after the 3.5 years, 1,260 days, which is the first half of the last 7 years, which is pretty much the midst of the years, is when they will be killed and then resurrected. And through that, people will know who is the true mighty one and who is not. similar to when Eliyahu brought fire from the heavens, and to that showed that Baal was so. Oh Yahweh, I have heard your report. The two witnesses also come to give a report or to testify and then bring a report to Yahweh. Oh Yahweh, I have heard your report. I was afraid. Oh Yahweh, renew your work in the midst of the years, like Mashiach did in the midst of history. Make it known in the midst of the years, like when the two witnesses die and resurrect in the midst of the last 7 years. In wrath, remember compassion. It is in the midst of those 7 years when the door of compassion that Mashiach opened will now close. But pretty much that midst of the last week of Daniel is the first half is a time of compassion that Yahweh gives during the time of wrath. So he's still giving time for people to receive him and receive therefore salvation. So then it says, Eloah comes from Teiman. Eloah comes from Teiman, and the set apart one from Mount Paran. Selah. When this appears most commonly in the Psalms, well, just like the other word that we saw, they say it's of doubtful meaning, but it is said that it means that one must think about what was just said. One should read, or well, in this case, also it is important that this is a song, and this confirms it because it is said that this also marks the change of a verse to a chorus or things like that within the writing of a song. That's why it is found in the Psalms, but now we find it here, which connects with the name that we saw here that was said by the concordance to be possibly a song. So now it says Eloah comes from Teiman, and the set apart one from Mount Paran. Selah. So this is important to think about. And we see once again that Yahweh, who is one, refers to his manifestation on this earth as a double one, like as a first and last. Eloah comes from Teiman, and the set apart one from Mount Paran. Now let me go and see these two meanings. A mount represents a kingdom. Paran is the place of caverns. As I always mention, caverns were used as tombs, so they connect with Sheol, which is under the earth. So the place where the souls go. So Paran, and this confirms it because Paran comes from Pa'ar, is to beautify, to adorn, which says south. So this is one of the ways of saying south. There are several ways to say it, and they actually appear in one of the images that we have here, but I don't think they have. Anyways, Teiman, which is south. The south connects with blessing according to what we see in scriptures. The meaning of Teiman, or the reason why it's south, is because west is the front. I mean, east is the front, west is the back. So north is the left and right is the south. Here you have Yud Mem Nun, which is pretty much the root of Yamin, which is right. So to the right or from the right, which is the south. So in Hebrew, it is understood that east is always the front, west is always the back, and the right is the south. So Teiman, which is, as you can see here, on the right, where it comes from Yamin. so towards the south. So now with that said, we go back. Eloah, the mighty one, comes from the south, pretty much bringing blessing. And for instance, the tribes of the south, Yehuda and Benjamin, Yahushua came from Yehuda. And the set apart one from Mount Paran, from the kingdom of caverns. We know that Mashiach came to bring blessing and then resurrected from the dead, so he came out of Sheol, the place of caverns. Another way of seeing it is that Mashiach came to bring blessing as Emmanuel, Elohim with us, and then the one who was set apart for another mission came from the kingdom of darkness, which is the apostasy, and therefore a place of caverns, in the sense that that is where people are in false doctrines, as if they were already in Sheol, for they haven't accepted Mashiach in order to receive life. So several ways for this verse to be understood, but the main point is that it refers to two, first and last. Eloah comes from Teman, and also the four corners of the earth connect with the four creatures that are around the throne of Yahweh, the cherubim, which have four shapes, one of a lion, which is connected to the east, like Yahushua from Yehuda came from the east. The last would come from the west, and that's why it is connected with the ox, which is sacrificed on Yom Kippur. The shape of the ox, the back, the west. Then the north is the eagle, and then the south is the face of a man. So Eloah comes from the south, connects with the fact that he will come as the son of man. And then the set apart one from Mount Paran, once again, I repeat, talking representing the resurrection. But since I just said the son of man from the south, then the set apart one would be Yahushua the first from the kingdom. And I already mentioned what caverns would refer to. But if we see Paran, as we just saw, Para, which has to do with something beautiful, something that is adorned, then the mount, the kingdom of that which is beautiful, therefore Mashiach, who came from the kingdom of heaven. Interestingly enough, that it says here his splendor right after saying Paran, which, like we just saw, possibly has a connection, even though they translate it like this here. We see that it comes from Par, and it means beautified. They write here glorified, but we know that is wrong, for glory is the goddess of fame, but that is to honor, to splendor. So kind of confirms that interpretation as well. So Eloah comes from Teiman, and the set apart one from Mount Param. Selah. His splendor shall cover the heavens, and his praise shall fill the earth. So we see the same being done here as we saw in the first part, talking about Yahweh, who is one in two different ways, for each one represents the first and the last. His splendor, here in verse 3, Elohim Teman, Seilat, then it says, Kiseh, his throne, Shamaim, Hodo. Here, Hod, which is splendor, is right under, when it comes to what was spoken about regarding the tree of life, is right under understanding and severity or judgment. That is the splendor, and this would be the third in the pillar that has to do with the kingdom of Yahweh, for the splendor has to do with the king. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if that was me, but anyways, So his splendor, and the point that I was making is that has to do with the fact that comes as a king. But like I always mention, what one fulfills spiritually, the other one fulfills it literally. And obviously, we know that Mashiach is the one that is mainly connected to the heavens. And we see here how it says, his splendor shall cover the heavens. In this case, it was saying kisa, which is will cover the heavens, his splendor. And then, and his praise shall fill the earth. It says Tehilatot, as in the Tehillim, which connects with the Psalms, therefore with songs, and also therefore with David, will fill the earth, as the earth connects with the last, just like the heavens connect with the first. So his splendor shall cover the heavens, and his praise shall fill the earth. Everybody, once they realize who he is, how he acts, in everything that he did, everything in the earth will praise him. And his splendor will cover the heavens. We can see that it does now in a sense, because through the stars we can see there's a creator, and also there's a message in the stars and several other things, but it refers to that moment in which his splendor will be revealed, not hidden behind the veil of the darkness of the night, and the stars being pretty much like little holes where we can see that splendor coming through to this reality. And his praise shall fill the earth. And the brightness is as the light. He has rays from his hand, and there his power is hidden. This is so beautiful. Several reasons. Obviously, Yahushua is the light, and the brightness is as the light, pretty much saying he's bright as light itself, and that is because he is the light. He has rays from his hand that connects him to Yahushua, as he said, I am the light of the world, and to the last, as he is the Son of Righteousness. Rays plus Mashiach was sacrificed by putting nails through his hands. So it is through the nail in the hands of Mashiach that light was able to come through into this reality for us to receive it and get life eternal. He has rays from his hand. Well, he says from his hand, which is also very important, because remember that Mashiach is the arm. So his hand is the messenger of Mashiach, the hand of Yahweh, the Malach Mikael. So he has rays from his hand, who happens to be the Son of Righteousness. So interesting that it has rays from his hand. His brightness is as the light. So it would be like saying, and the brightness of the Son of Righteousness is as the light of the first. For it is the light of the first which comes through the last. He has rays from his hand, and there his power is hidden. As we know, Mashiach is our power, for we can do all things through Mashiach who strengthens us. It's also saying that the power of Yahweh will be hidden within his hand, which is the last, the Son of Righteousness, through whom the light shines. Now let me see something. Hebrew real quick. The brightness is like the light. This is what I wanted to see, which is very interesting. When it says rays, it is just like when there were rays coming from the face of Moshe, right? The last is the witness like Moshe. So he has rays from his hand instead of when Moshe came down from the mountain had raised from his face. But when we look at the Hebrew, we see that the word raise in Hebrew is horns. Just like, and that is a way of interpreting what is being seen, because in Hebrew culture, in the language, it focuses on function, on purpose, not on shape, form. So horns represent power, represent authority. They are the crown of an animal. In fact, crown came from keren, which is what you see right here. Karnaim, that would be the plural. So horns from his hand. Horns from his hand. A nail is like a horn going through the hand, we could say, referring to Mashiach, but it's speaking in the plural, referring to the authority, the ruach, the light, which comes as horns from his hand. Also, the fact that the last, the hen, is the ox, which has horns. It says, and the brightness is as the light he has raised from his hand, and there his power is hidden. And there his power is within, or in the middle. And there is hidden his power. You see how it says power here, uzo? This uz is the second part of the name, the name I mentioned a lot. When it comes to the two pillars, I already mentioned, right, the pillar that has to do with the last, which is understanding, judgment, and then splendor. But that pillar is called Boaz, like the husband of Ruth. So Boaz, and they're only putting things that have to do with the language of nowadays. But here you see how Ain and Zain. Ain and Zain. So that is power, that is strength. Well, there you go. Strong right here, intense, powerful, mighty. But if we add a bet, we get Boaz, which has this meaning, fleetness, to be quick, fast, which has a connection with the last as a messenger who needs to be fast. And other things that I mentioned in the past, but like I always mention, this word can be seen as be'os, or with strength, with power. That's why Boaz, that pillar, represents the last. Yahushua is the pillar Yakin, which means he established. For Mashiach came to establish that which the last will manifest with strength and quickness. And the brightness is as the light. So it's talking as the Son of Righteousness appearing, which is important to mention right after he said the midst of the years, as in one of the interpretations, the last 7 years. So, and the brightness is as the light he has raised from his hand, and there his power is hidden. Before him goes pestilence. Before him goes pestilence. And a burning flame goes forth at his feet. Remember that this is referring to Yahweh coming to judge. So it is referring to that second pillar. The first pillar, Yakin, is the water of life. The second pillar, Boaz, is the consuming fire. So a burning flame goes forth at his feet. Before him goes pestilence. That has to do with the fact that when the last manifest is when the plagues will start to happen. Those of the seals, the trumpets, and then the last 7 plagues after he resurrects and leaves this earth. So before him goes pestilence, and a burning flame goes forth at his feet. that's also reason why people will hate him, for they will see him in a way, at least spiritually, as the cause for those plagues, not understanding that is everybody's fault for their own sins. Before him goes pestilence, and a burning flame goes forth at his feet. That's verse 5. So before his face walks, this is important because look at this. And this is one of the things I have mentioned regarding the issue with the vowel points that were added later, because it says, Lifanaiv Yelech Daveir. So that means before his face walks the plague, pestilence. But this word right here is Daveir with this vowel points. However, if we go to the translator, you'll see that if we write that same word, the first that it will tell us, well, imagine how amazing, because we know that Yahweh is the Davar, so they write nothing. But look how under it says speech, word. So that Davar is the word. So Daveir is connected to a word because it is through the word of Yahweh that the punishment comes, just like through the word comes his mercy. It is because he allows it, because he says it, that it happens. So it is through a davar that the davar happens, the plague, the pestilence. So that's why there is a clear connection between the two. Look how it even says commandment. So this word without vowel points means these and more. So we go back and we could see that it says also, before his face walks the word. And that is why Yahushua, the word, came before the last. Not only that, Yahushua, the word, is the one who will confirm what what the last says and preaches, because the last is the voice of that word. Also, by Yahushua walking first, he made the way. That's why he is the way to the Father. So before his face walks the word. I hope that was understood. And also the reason why it is written a plague. And I'm not saying that that is wrong. I'm just saying that adding the vowel points makes it so that people believe or think that that is the only meaning. But Yahweh is telling us a lot more. Because with him comes the word. Before he went the pestilence. Dever, pestilence, plague. And then you see that it says from davar, to speak, declare, converse, promise. And the brightness is, I already read that. Before him goes pestilence, and a burning flame goes forth at his feet. Remember that in the sense of Yahweh as the person, the congregation as the body, the feet, which are the end times, as we know through Daniel 2, for instance, connect with the two people that Yahweh sends to preach the good news, which are connected with the sandals that go on feet. So a burning flame goes forth at his feet. And as we know, the two witnesses, like those 2 feet, the two witnesses throw fire from their mouths, as it is written in Revelation 11, which is spiritual fire, of course, through the Ruach. So that is verse 5. Sorry, I want to see that in Hebrew as well. And it comes out fire from his feet, or for his feet. So then I'll continue with verse 6. He shall stand and measure the earth. He shall stand and measure the earth. He shall look and shake the nations. And the ancient mountains are shattered. The age-old hills shall bow. His ways are everlasting. Hills connect with females, as in nations, while mountains with males as kingdoms. In the positive, like since I said, males connect with Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and the hills with Sarah, Rivka, Leah, Rachel, Zilpah, and Bilhah. So he shall stand and measure the earth. As we know, measure has to do with judgment. So he comes to judge the earth. To measure, well, it means judgment and several other things, but it is also interesting how it connects with what has been revealed throughout the last, what, decade perhaps, or a bit less, regarding the shape of the earth. He shall stand and measure the earth. He shall look and shake the nations. And the ancient mountains are shattered. So the ancient kingdoms, like for instance, the seven heads of the beast, are shattered. The age-old hills shall bow, like the seven hills over which the great whore of Babylon sits. Pretty much mountains having to do with authority, governments, hills having to do with religions. The age-old hills shall bow, so they will finally realize who is the true mighty one, what is the true doctrine, what they should really do, and therefore they will give honor. For his ways are everlasting. So all power of this reality of the earth, of the flesh, will be shattered, will be shown to be nothing next to the true power, the source of all power. And the hills will give honor to the true mighty one. His ways are everlasting. So anything that is not everlasting will soon perish. I saw the tents of Cushan under sorrow. The curtains of the land of Midian tremble. Well, Cushan, we can see the name there. We can see that it starts with Cush, like in the ancestor of Nimrod. And then we have Midian, which connects with strife, war, and with Gideon, who fought Midian with 300, which connects with the last, who comes with the few, 144,000, to fight the dragon and the rest of those who are authority in this reality, obviously spiritually, fighting spiritually, not physically. So I saw the tents of Cushan under sorrow, the curtains of the land of Midian tremble. Shall Yahweh burn against the rivers? Shall Yahweh burn against the rivers? Is your displeasure against the rivers? Is your wrath against the sea that you ride on your horses, your chariots of deliverance? I just want to make sure this Kushan, well, since I'm here, let's see Midian as well. Kushan, yeah, the blackness comes from Kush. So yeah, the ancestor of Nimrod. Then we have Midian strife. So I saw the tents of the blackness. Obviously, when it comes to the spiritual significance of that color, it connects with sin, just like white as snow represents pureness. So I saw the tents of Kushan under sorrow. Those who are like Nimrod, who are living in sin, in darkness, they will be in sorrow. The curtains of the land of strife tremble. Those who, by not having Mashiach, by not having Yahweh, have no peace within them nor within their homes. So therefore, there's only strife, division brought by darkness, mentioned in the previous part of the verse. Then it says, shall Yahweh burn against the rivers? As we know, rivers connect with life, for that's why Mashiach was immersed in a river and then came out to represent his resurrection. And the sea represents the nations, but In the literal sense, we know how during the trumpets, Yahweh will hurt the rivers and the sea, a third of the rivers and a third of the sea. So shall Yahweh burn against the rivers? Is your displeasure against the rivers? Is your wrath against the sea? That you ride on your horses, your chariots of deliverance? As we know, also horses represent war. So it's like saying that you come to do war with creation itself. But also, as we know, the last comes as the rider of the first horse, which sadly in Christianity they normally teach that it is the Antichrist. That you ride on your horses, your chariots of deliverance. You uncover your bow, which confirms what I was just saying, because the rider of the first horse, the white horse of the first seal, comes with a bow, right? Revelation 6. So we see over and over again how it is confirming that it is talking about the end times, the last week of Daniel, when the last comes as the first seal, the rider of the first horse, who comes with a bow. You uncover your bow. Also, if we talk about the bow in the sky, the rainbow, which was a pact that Yahweh made with Noah, it is like you are showing your covenant. And that covenant not only has to do with the fact that Yahweh won't destroy the earth with water again, but at the same time, it confirms that he will destroy it through fire. You uncover your bow, the oaths of the rod of the word. So confirming what I was saying regarding the oaths, the covenant. The oaths of the rod of the word. Once again, Selah. So verse 9. Here when it's saying the covenant, the oath, this also connects with the week, as in the week of Daniel, 7. The scepters, it's Selah. So you uncover your bow. I already mentioned the importance of this, both when it comes to the bow of war and also the rainbow, both connected with the last, for the coming of the Son of Man would be like the days of Noah, when the bow was given. And the last is the rider of the horse that has a bow, Revelation 6. The oaths of the rod of the word. Yahushua is the word, the last is the rod, for he comes to rule with a rod of iron. So that's why oaths, as in first and last. Well, we can also say Yahushua came to make the new covenant. That means there was a previous one, that of the letter written in stone. So Yahushua came to renew the covenant, as we saw when Habakuk said previously, renew, right, in the midst of the years. So you uncover your bow, the oaths of the rod of the word. Also, first and last, Yahushua made the new covenant. The last confirms the covenant. Then he says, you cut through the earth with rivers. You cut through the earth with rivers. That's what, well, Yahweh made rivers, and that's what rivers do. But I mean, that's the obvious thing. Then we have the fact that Yahushua is the water of life. So when we preach, we become a river. And through that, we cut through the flesh, which is made from the earth or the soil. We cut through the evil inclination within the flesh, the desires of the flesh. You cut through the earth with rivers. The mountains shall see you. The mountains shall see you. They tremble. This connects with the time when he appeared in Mount Sinai to give the Torah. But this also refers, and mainly refers, to the kingdoms, the kings. When they see the last, they won't recognize the first, but then eventually when they get to recognize and know, they will tremble. The mountains shall see you, they tremble. The storm of water shall pass over. The storm of water shall pass over. The deep shall give forth its voice. Interesting that it says the deep shall give forth its voice, because from the deep, Azazel, Abaddon, will come out pretty much as the voice of the enemy of darkness. Just like on the other hand, we have the last as the voice of Yahushua, the light. The deep shall give forth its voice, it shall lift up its hands. That which will help him, that which will manifest as the works of darkness. That's why it shall lift up his hands. Also, it is referring to the fact that everything, even the darkness, will eventually give honor to Mashiach. For we know everything will confess his name, and every knee shall bow, and every tongue shall confess that he is sovereign, that Yahushua is Hamashiach. So that's why the deep shall give forth his voice, and it shall lift up his hands. Sun and moon shall stand. Oh, this is important, very amazing, because this happened once. Sun, moon shall stand still in their places, like light, your arrows fly, like lightning is your glittering spear. So we know that in the time of Yahushua, the successor of Moshe, when he was fighting, he told the sun and the moon to stop so that they could finish the fight, that not to come down, for if darkness would come, then they would lose. So he told the sun and the moon to stop. And since Yahweh was fighting for Israel, Yahweh listened to Yahushua, for he was acting as the leader of Israel. So Yahweh appeared in his humbleness as a soldier. And when Yahushua said, sun and moon stop, then Yahweh as a soldier made the sun and the moon stop by the order of Yahushua. And it is written that that was a unique day, the only time that Yahweh listened to the voice of a man. So now we know that Yahushua is the name of Yahushua the first, but his lineage is that of the last, for he comes from Joseph, Ephraim. So it connects with how the last will come to destroy Amalek, to destroy the enemy. And when he comes, this will happen either again in the literal sense or in the spiritual sense, for sure, on by the fact that time will change. So in a sense, the sun and the moon will stop working as they have worked for the past 6,000 years. So sun, moon shall stand still in their places. But like I said, this is mainly having to do with what happened in the time of Joshua. And I'll read it in just a moment. So we have here that it says, exactly, they wrote it like this, but it doesn't matter, I'll pronounce it correctly. Then Yahushua spoke to Yahweh in the day when Yahweh gave the Amorites over to the children of Israel. And he said before the eyes of Israel, sun, stand still over Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Ayalon. So the sun stood still and the moon stopped, till the nation avenged itself upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Yashar? Confirming that it happened. Thus the sun stopped in the midst of the heavens, just like Yahweh was asked by Habakuk to bring compassion in the midst of the years. And who marks the years? The sun. So the sun stopping represents the accusation stopping, compassion being given. Then the sun stopped in the midst of the heavens and did not hasten to go down for an entire day. And there has been no day like that before it or after it, that Yahweh listened to the voice of a man, because Yahweh fought for Israel. So sun, moon shall stand still in their places. That fight, that war, it connects spiritually with this war that will happen in the end times. Like light, your arrows fly. connecting it obviously with the bow that he uncovered. For that is when the last appears, manifests, he is uncovered. Like when the sun appears and it is uncovered for the day to happen. Also similar to when Moshe was hidden for the first 3 months of his life, and then he was put in a river. So interesting that it says, you uncover your bow, the oaths of the rod of the word. You cut through the earth with rivers, where Moshe was placed. Also, then Moshe went through the Red Sea, or the Sea of Reeds, and then they all went through the Jordan River. So then we have again, like light, your arrows fly. So it is showing that he throws arrows with his bow, and those arrows are light, for that is the teaching of Mashiach, the testimony of Mashiach, which is the spirit of prophecy, and that's why they are the two prophets sent by Yahweh, the two witnesses. Like lightning is your glittering spear. So teaching, doctrine is what comes from that person who is the voice of Yahweh. That is why, like lightning, because he is the thunder. Remember, the thunder is the voice. You step through the earth in rage. You thresh the nations in wrath. Once again, showing that it is talking about the time of the wrath, not the time of Mashiach. I say that because it is obvious that the more we read scriptures, how there are so many prophecies to be fulfilled still, while many people believe that all prophecies were fulfilled in the time of Mashiach, which makes no sense when you actually read scriptures. You shall go forth to save your people. As he promised, he says in Isaiah, I am the first and I will be with the last. Also, since we're talking about the midst, Yahweh said, I will raise a prophet like you, talking to Moshe, from their midst. That is the last who would be with the last. So you shall go forth to save your people, as in during the second Exodus, to save your anointed. To save your anointed. This is important because, like I said, we just read here and it shows that it is not talking about the time of Yahushua the Messiah. It is talking about the time of the very end. So why would he have to save his anointed? If we go to the verse 13, we see that it says, to save your Mashiach, right? You see this word right here, Mashiach, Messiah, your anointed. So why would he have to save his Messiah in the end times? And even we could say from the wrath, if we know Messiah the first, Yahushua didn't sin. He came to bring mercy. He didn't need salvation. He needed justice. And that's why he was resurrected, because in the law of justice, it is written that whoever fulfills the Torah, the law, he will die. He will not die. He will live by those commandments. So Mashiach fulfilled all the commandments. He was supposed to always live, yet Satan decided to kill him. So that's why Yahweh, who is over Satan, obviously, raised them up from the dead. But that was justice, not mercy. So the fact that he's saying that he has to save his anointed shows that he had to come again, the last as an anointed, and needed salvation, the salvation that was given through Mashiach 2,000 years ago. So this is very interesting. You shall go forth to save your people, to save your anointed. Also, we could say the anointed is his people, because his people are his body, the body of Mashiach, right? But as we know, the way he does it is through the two witnesses, of which one is the second manifestation, which would be also called anointed. In fact, even Eliyahu is anointed. But I'm just saying, in terms of the order in which that word is used, is obviously mainly used with Yahushua the first, secondly with the last, thirdly with Eliyahu, then with the high priest of the earth, and then the kings. So you shall go forth to save your people, to save your anointed. You shall smite the head from the house of the wrong. You shall smite the head from the house of the wrong by laying bare from foundation to neck. There are two things that are interesting here. One is that Yahweh promised Chizkiyahu, Yechezkel, the prophet Yechezkel, that he would make his head as strong or hard as the it is translated as diamond, but in Hebrew it has a word that refers to a precious stone that was used to cut the stones for the temple. So Yahweh promises the last, represented by Yechezkel, that he would make him stubborn in a good sense. For his people are way too stubborn, and they won't want to understand or hear the prophecies given through the last, meaning the teachings of Yahweh given through the last. So since they are so hard-headed, Yahweh will make the head of the last even harder, so that those heads will be broken. So that's why it says here, you shall smite the head from the house of the wrong. Remember also that we were talking about horns. The last comes as the ox, which smite with the horns. Then it says, by laying bare from foundation to neck. We see in Daniel 2, the statue that Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream, which Daniel then interpreted. And Daniel said how that statue represented all the kingdoms of the earth till the end times. And it spoke about a stone that was cut from a mountain, not by human hand, that fell and hit the statue on its feet, and the statue was destroyed from foundation to neck. Plus, the head was smitten by, like I mentioned, like the prophecy of Yechezkel, just like Goliath was hit in the head by David, by David's stone. David represents the last. The stone that David threw is the cornerstone, Yahushua HaMashiach, the teaching of the good news. Now that I mentioned Goliath, look how interesting. You shall pierce with his own arrows the head of his leaders. Just like when David hit Goliath with the stone, right after he came close to him, he took his own sword, Goliath's sword, and then cut his head with his own sword. So now we have the last, who is the branch of David, who comes with a bow, now using their own arrows to kill them, to destroy them spiritually in the spiritual war, meaning their own teachings against them. You shall pierce with his own arrows the head of his leaders. Like when Mashiach said in Revelation 2, repent, lest I come to you and fight with them with the sword of my mouth. So he has to come and fight through his messenger, mentioned in Revelation 22. They stormed along to scatter me, rejoicing as if to devour the poor in secret. They stormed along to scatter me, rejoicing as if to devour the poor in secret. You shall tread the sea with your horses, the foaming of many waters. We know how Mashiach walked on water to represent how the lads would go through the nations who are represented by the sea. Horses represent war, and we know that the army, the heavenly army, which are the 144,000 that are coming to fight with the lads during the war of Armageddon, as the 144,000 on earth, they will be spiritually on horses as well, because they will also be in a spiritual fight. So you shall tread the sea with your horses, the foaming of many waters. I heard, and my body trembled. My lips quivered at the sound. Rottenness came into my bones, and I trembled within myself, that I might rest for the day of distress to come upon the people who would attack us. So in a way, we could see this as him realizing that he would die before this manifested. Rottenness came into my bones, and I trembled within myself. Also, it refers to how he was feeling, of course, when he saw that, and he was hoping not to have to go through it. I heard in my body tremble, my lips quivered at the sound. Rottenness came into my bones, and I trembled within myself that I might rest for the day of distress to come upon the people who would attack us. So imagine he saw it and he felt this way. So may Yahweh have mercy on all of us and protect us from those who may want to attack us, wherever we may be, whenever that may be. And as we know, Yahweh promises the chosen few that he will take him out of this reality and into the eternal one by the transformation during the harvest, taking him to the prepared place of Revelation 12 for the rest and the worst distress to happen on earth. Though the fig tree does not blossom and there is no fruit on the vine, right? We don't see works coming from Yahudah nor from Israel. Sadly, most are in a type of apostasy. But even though the people don't do what they are supposed to, Yahweh will do what he promised, no doubt. Though the fig tree does not blossom, and there is no fruit on the vine, the yield of the olive has failed. Also, it's interesting that we are entering a time of famine, pretty much. Sadly, they are making sure there will be a lack of food in the world. And we see it here prophesied as well. Though the fig tree does not blossom and there is no fruit on the vine, the yield of the olive has failed, and the fields brought forth no food. The flock has been cut off from the fold, and there is no herd in the stalls. Like I mentioned, this refers in the literal to the third seal, in the spiritual to the lack of works from his people. The Yahudim as the fig tree, the Yisraelim as the vine, the congregation as the herd, the many who will be killed, the olive as the priests, and the food in general as the doctrine. And the fields brought forth no fruit. The flock has been cut off from the fold, and there is no herd in the stalls. Yet I exalt in Yahweh. So even when this happens, as it is beginning to happen, like I mentioned, and they are preparing it, which will eventually become the third seal of Revelation 6. Yet I exult in Yahweh. I rejoice in the Elohim of my deliverance. Yahweh, the sovereign, is my strength. This is important. The more we have faith in Yahweh, the more strength we'll have during this time. Yahweh, the sovereign, is my strength, and he makes my feet like those of deer and makes me walk on my high places. So imagine how Habakuk is saying that right after saying, rottenness came into my bones, etc. Now he's saying it makes me walk on my high places. For through our prayer with the Most High, he renews our strength. Through our faith in him, we become strong in the trial and test, and he realizes how he makes us walk on high and makes me walk on my high places to be chief singer with my stringed instruments. As if he was referring to David or the branch of David, the chief singer. Yahweh the sovereign is my strength, and he makes my feet like those of deer, and makes me walk, look like, mentions his feet like those of deer, like I mentioned regarding the two witnesses like the feet, but the last being real fast, as in the word Boaz, feet like those of deer, referring to the last being the messenger of Mashiach. And we saw last week the false Elohim called Mercury and everything that it represented. And I mentioned how through the copy that the enemy made, we can see the original that Yahweh meant. So that's why we see once again here the quickness, and makes me walk on my high places to the chief singer with my string instruments. So that's how that chapter ends.